Dr. Frances Levine, director of the New Mexico History Museum, and Dr. Roger Martinez Davila, you're a professor at the University of Colorado, and Sonia Loya, you're an artisan and educator. I wanted to thank you all for joining us to talk about this segment about the Jewish experience in New Mexico, especially crypto-Jews. Roger, I want to start with you. We just saw this piece about Isabel Sandoval, a poet who, and her search for her identity as a converso or a crypto-Jew. Who were the conversos? Why did they come to New Mexico?
Sure, it's a great question. So conversos essentially are Jewish converts to Christianity, and they begin converting to Christianity in the late 1300s in Spain. It accelerates in the 1400s.
Now they converted by force, mostly.
Well, and this is the really challenging piece. We know that some Jews are converting by force because of extreme violence against them by Christian populations. Some are choosing to convert. They're adopting Catholicism at that time period. And others are just, they're trying to find a middle way. They're not sure what's going to really happen. We know it really accelerates in 1492 when the Jews are expelled from Spain. And finally, when we get to the Americas in the 1500s, some Jewish converts to Christianity, these conversos, are traveling with the conquistadores, with the colonists that are coming into Mexico and New Mexico in the 1500s, secretly as crypto-Jews, kind of still practicing some religious beliefs that are Jewish, and others are kind of full-blown Catholics that they're of a Jewish ancestry, but they've moved on. So it's a really complicated population.
So some of them were outwardly practicing Catholicism, maybe secretly holding on to traditions. Some are sort of nominally practicing Christianity to fit in.
Well, and this is really, I think, reflective of what's happening in Spain. So we want to contextualize in that way. Basically from 711 to 1492 in Spain, we had 800 years of Jews, Christians, and Muslims living alongside of each other. The communities are very distinct, but over 800 years of living together, you start blending some practices. You start to influence each other. And what's interesting then in the Americas is that, well, that's all over. By the time we hit 1492, when the Americas are discovered or encountered, as well as the expulsion of the Jews, that time period is over, and now all of a sudden people are really kind of hybridized individuals. There are all kinds of pieces inside of them, maybe distinctly Catholic, maybe distinctly Jewish too.
And there, go ahead, Fran.
Well, if you look at the ship's manifest, you're not going to find anybody after 1492 who says, I am a Jew. Okay? I am. Everyone who comes to the New World must be Christian. Everyone who's in a Spanish possession must express that Christian identity. So that's the point at which the Christian identity begins to overlay and become dominant over how you live outwardly in the world.
We should say that Spain was ruled by the Moors for hundreds of years.
Absolutely.
And
so
that's one aspect, and then it's what we're talking about is a period when the Christians then drive the Moors out, take control. It becomes this more predominant kind of identity or...
Sure, and then in 1492, when the Jews are driven out, those who stay are outwardly Christian, but maybe practicing Judaism in their homes, and others may be so thoroughly Christianized that they're not practicing Judaism. So what comes to the New World with the conquistadors, with the explorers, are people of, I would say, already hybridized identities.
And some of them are coming to maybe get away from central authority that's scrutinizing, well, are you really a convert?
Well, I think that's always the case, and I think so few people realize that the Inquisition was here in New Mexico, and that Inquisition officers were part of examining people's claims, and it was also a political tool. The Inquisition is very much a political tool here in New Mexico. And we have one particular governor and his wife in the 1660s who are accused of being Jewish. And then when you review the trial record, the behaviors, people are desperate to try to define why these people are so different. But the behaviors they describe are not anything that you would think of as Jewish practice. Doña Teresa Aguilera Roche, the governor's wife, is accused of reading books in a foreign language and laughing. Well, she was raised in Italy. She was raised in Cartagena. She is a woman of the world. Her mother was Irish. So yes, she's reading in other languages. Here in New Mexico, people probably didn't read in Italian and English.
So it became a way to, like the Salem witch trials a little bit, to name your enemies and persecute them if you could accuse them
Sure.
of being
That's right.
Jews.
And we should put it in this broader kind of framework too, which is what was the Inquisition about? So it's a Catholic institution founded in 1478 in Spain. In 1480 it goes into implementation and will exist all the way into early 1800s. So as we know, Spain is its own kind of proper entity, while all of its dependencies, so all the way to the Philippines, to Mexico and South America.
To India.
Yeah, that's right.
To Goa.
To Goa under the Portuguese, they're actively pursuing cases of heresy. So these are specifically Catholics that can be investigated. So if you're Jewish, openly Jewish, there's no jurisdiction over you by the Catholic Church because you're not a member of the faith. So this is important. Now, if
But
you're
you can't live openly.
Right.
That's
You
right.
can't live openly because legally you don't exist.
I want to bring in Sonia because you have said in interviews that you always felt growing up in New Mexico, you never really felt at home in your Christian faith. You felt called by Judaism. Eventually you learned your family had hidden Jewish roots. They were conversos. Why was it hidden? Did they tell you? For so long.
No, it's a secret. Actually, I'd been practicing Judaism on my own just because I was drawn to it, and I left the church when I was 18. And I started practicing when I was about 36 on my own, and just trying to find, Jewish references, etc. Started to do my own genealogy. And
You just felt drawn to it? You didn't know for sure if you had this history?
no.
Okay.
I started in 1996 on my journey of, exploring, trying to discover, trying to find my own personal truth. And in 2004, I went to my parents to ask for a blessing to open up Bat Zion Hebrew Learning Center in Ruidoso, which I grew up Catholic there, and I didn't want to cause conflict for my family and myself. So I asked for my parents' blessings to do this center. And my dad that night not only gave me a blessing, but revealed to me the family secret that he had known he was Jewish since he was 6. So here, all this time I'd been telling them, as I discovered more and more through my own, family genealogy, trying to research that I thought we were Jews. All of our names were in the Inquisition records. And he finally is telling me in 2004.
Why? But you're going through the 70s, 80s, 90s. What were they still afraid of?
My father was 6 years old when he was forced to keep the family secret. He was born in 1938. His uncles, my great uncles, had been liberating the camps in World War II. And one of my uncles came home and told my great grandmother it was still not safe to be a Jew. And he told her the atrocities he had seen in World War II, liberating the camps, and the family names he had seen in the camps. And my father heard all this, and they swore him to family secrecy.
Roger, you know where her family came from in Spain, I believe.
Yeah, and this was just really exciting about it because I think for a lot of folks, they come to the crypto-Jewish issue with a bit of skepticism, and I think that's important because, one, we do want to accept people for who they are. In the same sense, as an historian, I'm interested in the background. So in the case of Sonia de Loya's family, I study Jewish and Catholic families that immigrate from Spain and into the Americas, largely from the Extremadura, which is where a lot of the conquistador families came from. They came from places like Albuquerque.
No, Albuquerque, yeah.
So it's really interesting in that sense. So the de Loyas, I know from Plasencia in the 1400s, there is a Rabbi, Abraham de Loya from Plasencia, who is openly leading that community. And what's really interesting is that I can see part of the reasons why they're in hiding. Well, in the 1430s, there was this horrible conflict between Jewish and Catholic families, specifically Catholic families battling each other over control over the city. And who got caught in the middle? It was the Jewish population. And Rabbi...
Or convenient scapegoats.
Yeah, well, Rabbi de Loya was actually carried off in shackles and taken up into a mountain hideaway and didn't know what was going to happen to him. And this is in the 1430s when you could still practice as a Jew. And later on, this problem is resolved where the Catholics finally do kind of resolve that they will work with each other. But the end result is the rabbi was carried off in shackles and is liberated. But there are two other Jewish individuals who were found drowned in a river. So you kind of put this thing into the larger perspective is your life is in danger consistently, even under the best circumstances. So when you get to the Americas, I think the tendency is like, why take the risk? keep the secret.
Sonia, how did it feel when you found out, when it was confirmed?
Shock, disbelief, relief. I had a variety of, emotions at one time. And of course, my dad being the crypto Jew that he is, and I say this all the time, I am not a crypto Jew.
Right.
Okay, because you
Today
are
I
practicing.
am Jewish.
Okay.
That is my identity. But my father is still a crypto Jew.
He doesn't want to tell other people.
No, he's never told even his siblings to this day. My mother and I are the only people he has told.
Well,
The big-
have you told his siblings?
The biggest
Or
family.
you just are like, they're saying, oh, she's doing this Jewish thing over here. We don't know what that's about.
Actually, it's kind of, I get the look. It's really the biggest family secret that I'm Jewish.
Fran, this is very interesting. So this goes to all kinds of questions of identity. And the show that you're opening next year at the New Mexico History Museum, what does this contribute to our understanding of the very complex identities and heritage in New Mexico?
Well, I think New Mexico is a place where now we embrace such a range of identities, so many hyphenated identities. And in New Mexico for centuries we've been talking about, well, are these people Spanish? Are they Spanish American? Are they Mexican? Are they Mexican American? Are they Hispano? Are they Latino? And then to add on to it the layer of Jewish and crypto-Jewish, I think there's been a tremendous opening of the whole concept of identity. And identity is situational, and it's learned. It's you know who you are both by what your people tell you are, what your family tells you are, but also by what your community tells you are or you are not. And people here embrace that range, people who are Native American, or they may use a specific tribal identity. They may say they're Navajo and Laguna, or they may say they're San Juan or Okewinge now. So we've seen the way in which identity is very fluid, it's very situational, and it can change over time, even within a family, as Sonia was talking about. Her father doesn't talk about being a crypto Jew even.
Yeah.
And Sonia, in the midst of her extended family, may be the only person who does that.
Why does that still exist today? Why is, do you want to answer that? Why
I
is
feel
that
like I
still a
can-
problem to
Well-
say you're Jewish?
I think right now, because there's so much research on so many different levels with this phenomenon, if you have BRCA1, and it's
And this is a
genetically
DNA test, right? We should be clear about that. I don't know if people
Right.
understand. You can get a DNA test
Exactly.
to determine your roots.
Jewish identity,
Okay.
sure.
Well, I think you can get the test to determine your blood lineage, your genetic lineage. That won't tell you what your identity is.
No.
No, I'm sorry, you're right.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
But you have genetics, as far as your DNA. But if you have BRCA1, which is a cancer that's passed down genetically,
Okay.
why wouldn't you have genetic memory? Is there the possibility that genetic memory is passed along and you have all these 500 plus years, 521 years of fear? And the fear of death, the fear of torture, the fear of, here we are trying to survive in a world that it's still not popular to be Jewish. So when is it safe? My daughter converted. We do our private Hanukkahs, we do our private Seders. Our family, my dad comes to those, but it's not going to be more than that for him. Within him, he had the secret for his whole life up until 2004. That was 10 years ago.
For some people, I think, too, there's a fear of discrimination.
Sure.
Right.
And so if it's not as extreme as pain and death and persecution, there's this fear of discrimination. It's like, well, what does it mean to be Jewish? It means I'm different. It means I don't believe in the things my family believe. I don't believe in the Savior. I believe that the Messiah hasn't come yet.
So you can get, there's been a vast upsurge in popularity in the last 20, 30 years to get these DNA tests.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that that automatically
No,
transforms your identity, or
No.
maybe it does. Or,
So if you start to look at that genome, you can look through the Y DNA, the paternal DNA, or the maternal DNA, which is the mtDNA, and all those really kind of tell you is you can follow up your father's father's father. Well, that's just one very specific lineage, and what it can tell you is what's associated with it. So we see a lot of people with your DNA traditionally coming from this region of, let's say, Palestine. But being a resident of Palestine, does that mean that you are Jewish? Does it mean you're Muslim? Does it mean you're Sikh? It depends. And so it's just the age of that kind of lineage that starts to show kind of associations.
And you may, at some point in your life, I mean, here in New Mexico, there has been skepticism surrounding the conversos and the crypto Jews. People who have said, "How can that be? How can something survive this long?" And it's not that it survives unchanged. Cultures change, they morph, they adapt to their circumstances, they evolve, and so I think here in New Mexico, it's not that that everyone acted the same as a converso or crypto Jew or hidden Jew.
I agree.
But that within the family, they may have told the stories, and some members of the family hear it, resonate with it, and can express it.
Talk about what the traditions that people held on to that you know of. at
Okay,
least.
so my mother, when I started practicing Judaism more and more and learning more and more, and even after my conversion, I've actually found out more family traditions after my conversion, which was 8 years ago. My mom would, we'll sit and have lunch, and she just starts telling me a story about the day her grandmother died. She requested to be facing her feet facing the east. My grandmother and her sisters stayed and said special prayers. They went and got the family priest, and I'm in total shock going, we had a family priest? This is a tradition in converso families that the oldest son would be a Catholic priest. There's many reasons for that. So I'm shocked. I find out I have a family priest in the family, and they go get him. They do special prayers all night. They wash the body after she passes away, and they bury her the next day. We're just having lunch, and all of a sudden this story, my mom's just remembering this story. She has no clue. My grandmother was so secretive about her family. This is my maternal grandmother. So how are you to find these secrets other than practices? It wasn't until I went to my first Shabbat service that I see candles lit, and I'm going, well, I did that with my grandmother, but I thought that was Catholic.
On Friday nights.
I have all these memories praying. My grandmother prayed facing the east 3 times a day, had her head covered. She prayed in Spanish. I just remember being little and doing that with her.
Roger, I want to ask you, in this series that we're sort of a companion piece to the story of the Jews, the National, on the website, there's an interactive map of the diaspora of Jews to all parts of the world. There's really nothing about our region or South America at all. Why is that?
It's a great question, I think, because Sephardic lineage, so these Jews from Spain, are a very distinct population from the Ashkenazi. And it is a population that went in several different directions after 1492. Some went to the Ottoman Empire, to Turkey and the Mediterranean. Some went to Morocco. Populations went to the Netherlands and even into England. One of the largest populations, I think, actually went to Mexico and South America. But it's not a story that's told as much. I think it partially relates to American history, which is, I think we conceptualize the United States as this British and kind of French foundation. And in that way, the Spanish foundation is kind of shuffled a little bit to the side. So there is kind of we don't know this history as well because we don't teach it very much. And in that sense, we do know it's very active. And again, in the way that you could be maybe Jewish and Ashkenazi in Europe and open about it, well, Spanish Jews couldn't do that. That was not an
These
option.
are Sephardic Jews, a much smaller percentage worldwide of Jews.
very
But
much
one reason
so.
that story is not told.
Although one of the oldest Sephardic temples in the United States is in New York.
That's right.
That's right. If we look at the first synagogues that were founded in the United States, so moving all the way from Rhode Island to Philadelphia and New York, they're all Sephardic synagogues. So some of the oldest kind of populations there. And that's really the challenge. I think just like any kind of community, we're proud of most of maybe of our own individual lineages. Well, some of the most profound lineages on the East Coast are of Ashkenazi descent. So I think they're naturally going to celebrate those.
We're coming to the end, so I just want to turn to Sonia for a final question. I'm curious now, you are a practicing Jew, and given sort of these distinctions between Jewish communities, we had Jews come here as pioneers who were practicing in the 19th century and onward. How much do these communities intersect when you go to a synagogue? What's your experience now?
15 years ago, it is totally different than it is today. Just today I went to morning minyan. I was a little bit, well, I was actually on time, so that means I was early. I was one of the few women, the only Hispanic. By the end of the service, I turned around and the back rows are filled with Hispanic families that have converted. I'm seeing that more and more, especially here in the Southwest. We've done enough education that rabbis are beginning to open their doors, and it's not so much a secret anymore. The secret's out, and the doors are opening, and I think that's very important. For Jews all over the world, we're a very multi-diversified people, and we're every color, we're different shapes and sizes, and it's really interesting that I'll be going to Israel in May for a pilot trip, and I hope to take some DNA test kits because I found 15 Loya families in Tel Aviv, and I found the diaspora patterns for those 15 families from 1492. And they did go to the Ottoman Empire and to Portugal and Morocco. So I have a long lineage of Loya rabbis in Morocco, in Turkey, in Bulgaria, and back to Israel by the middle of the 1500s. There's also an ancient Loya synagogue. So I'm looking forward to meeting my Loya counterpart family in Israel and finding the Loya synagogue and hoping to open more doors.
This is excellent. I want to thank you all so much for spending time coming and talking about this on New Mexico in Focus.
Thank you.
Thank you.